Rosen is here from waitingfornextyear.com. Randy from Lyndhurst says Chris Grant passed on a true post center in Jonas Valanciunas in 2011 to reach for a guy with zero offensive skills in Tristan Thompson with that critical number 4 pick. Never, never, never should a player lacking in offensive skills ever be selected that high, and rarely has that type of pick worked out.
I would argue with that, just to say that that was one of the worst drafts ever. And other than Valanciunas, and who's one of these European guys who it's hit or miss. He could have been, he could be Darko for all we know.
And you had to wait a year to get him.
And you had to wait a year
to
get
get
him.
He's played 13 games in the NBA. How can you say that Jonas is going to be better than Tristan Thompson right now?
I mean,
Thompson's at least 9-9. Thompson gets a lot of shots blocked. He's not very good offensively. Who knows what his ceiling is going to be? But at least you know he's going to be a 9-9, 10-10 kind of guy.
My problem is I don't want to have a guy that high who I can't have on the floor at the end of the games for foul shooting purposes.
That's very true, but again, I go back to that draft being so bad that that's basically what your options were.
Tim from Norton says, Lester, talking about B.J. Upton and his 5-year contract, are the Indians simply waiting for teams to get back to them about proposed trades, and when do you guys think something will be done? I think something's going to happen. I don't know, nothing big, but at the winter meetings.
Yeah, I was going to say, the winter meetings are coming up, and you know, the one thing that you heard was that the one team that has the most, you know, that other teams are going to the most to talk to are the Indians, because you have, you know, arguably you got Chu, Masterson, Asdrubal Cabrera, right. Chris Perez. That's 4 very quality pieces that the Indians could trade if they want. To your point earlier when we were talking about that core group, could you add some pieces and contend? As bad as the AL Central is, the Indians' farm systems at the top level are worse, and you have nothing on the come. You've got to restock that system. You have to. Your best players are all going to be AA guys or single-A guys next year. Shortstop is the deepest position that we have in the organization. Ronnie Rodriguez, Lindor,
Rodriguez,
Tony
Lindor,
Walters,
and Dorsis Paulino.
And Paulino.
Down in the single-A.
Yeah, so you have the depth there to where we just got Mike Aviles in that trade. If you're gonna do this thing right, you got to deal Asdrubal at his peak value. Get yourself some nice pieces, buy yourself a year with Aviles, and then hopefully Lindor is as great as everybody thinks he's going to be.
The Aviles deal, it's so obvious what happened here that Francona comes in and says, okay, I don't want Asdrubal. Get me an Aviles, get me through as you suggest, and get the most you can get. That's so obvious that's what happened.
Or the other side of it is you now have the albatross that was Travis Hafner, who couldn't play in the field holding up that DH spot, and you say, I'm going to grab Aviles. He can play third, second, or short. You can rotate out of those spots and Aviles between the DH spot. Give these guys all days off here and there in the field and put their bat in that spot.
Right.
That's another school. That's what the Indians will tell you right now.
Time to ask you the proverbial question, not which team is going to win next, because that ages away. It's not just waiting for next year. Which team's going to get to 500 first?
Not the Indians. Not the Indians at all. I think it's got to be the Browns. The Cavs are still at least another year and a half away. It's conceivable for a lot of people that the Browns could be 8-8 next year. So I would have to say them. Their defense is the best unit of any that we've got. Indians pitching sucks. Their offense is not very good. The Cavs defensively are awful, but the Browns defense is pretty good right now, and so I think that's the team that's closest to being at all in contention.
The saddest thing is that we're having a question of who can get to 500 first. I mean, that's
unbelievable.
With 3 teams.
Yeah, and by the way, if somebody won somewhere along the line, that's a palatable question to ask. But you know,
Jacob's right.
Oh, by the way, going back to Shapiro, they can't hang their hat on 07 either. That's ancient history.
Next year will be 6 seasons ago, and that's a long time ago. I would have to agree with Jacob. It's got to be the Browns, only because in the NFL you can, of course we haven't, but you can turn it around with one of those soft schedules like we did in 2007.
And the ball bounces the right way.
The defense has a nice core to it. Trent Richardson's the best offensive skill player this city has had since Jim Brown. And if you can build off of him, and you can keep games close with a tough defense, anything can happen.
You know, to your point, I always get people saying you shouldn't take that running back with that high a pick. You know what? If he's as good as Richardson, I don't care where you take him. And they say, oh, you can get a running back in the 6th round. No, you can't. If the guy was that good, he wouldn't be available in the 6th round.
Well, you can. I mean,
yeah, but
these
you got to get
things
lucky.
do happen.
You got to get lucky.
Freddie Morris.
Yeah.
Terrell Davis was a 6th round pick, but for every Terrell Davis in the 6th round, and for every bad Blair Thomas, Curtis Enos in the first round, there's equal amounts of, you know, Trent Richardson.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, Richardson's an absolute stud. We haven't had anybody this good in my lifetime. And you gotta ride him like the Vikings are riding Adrian Peterson. Ride this guy into the ground for 5-6 years.
Yeah, what I hear
and
is
hope for the best.
he won't play more than 5 years. You
Fine,
know what? If he
I'll
gives
take
us
it.
5 years, we'll take it. Same thing with the
Yeah.
quarterback. They talk about Whedon and say he'll be 37 or whatever.
Yeah.
We haven't had a 5-year guy since Bernie Kosar. So you want to get 5 years out of Whedon, we'll take it.
And Bernie was only 85 to, you know, his peak. You know, Lloyd Burris did him in '89.
Yes,
his
he
career was
did.
never the same.
All right, that'll do it for us. Terry Pluto tomorrow night. Jacob Rosen and TD, Todd Derry, waitingfornextyear.com. Check it out. It's the best website, local website around. We'll see you tomorrow night. Of all the shows I've ever done, this was the most recent.